Okay, I think you are set.
Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education meeting for Able Park Central School District on this Monday, January 10th, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And that brings us to the superintendent's report.
Well, good evening, everyone. Hop right to the report. Give me 1 second. All right, so the board report, you should be able to see at this point, very, very short board report. Really just wanted to highlight two things. Really, we just met only a few weeks ago now, and then we had the break in between. So not a ton to report to the board. I did want to talk a little bit about COVID test kit distribution. Last week, we did distribute more than 1,500 test kits. Each one obviously has 2 in it. We were able to keep a spreadsheet of all the parents reach out to us and told us they could not pick one up. All those parents have received one at this point. We give folks a chance of choice of either coming to the main office or we'd send it home with their child. We just needed kind of written permission is what we were going with there. Really important for anyone who is watching from home or who watches it later on. If you've not received the test kit, just please contact your child's building principal and we will make arrangements to get them to you. Literally, we're getting them turned around that day or the next day. So we will get them to you pretty much immediately, but just let us know. And then the second thing is our community engagement team. Exciting new initiative that we're starting. Seemed like that was very far off in the future, but that's now only a few days away. So we are scheduled to meet for the first time on Wednesday, January 19th. We have a finalized list of community members. We have a really good representation, and we're excited to have our first meeting at 6 o'clock on the 19th. The agenda will be done soon, and we'll get that out to the committee in advance, and certainly be sure to update the board as to the topics that are discussed and how that goes. A rather short report tonight. And I'll flip over now to the Celebrations of Success video. right, so thanks as always to Brian Radowitz for putting together this video. And with that, the superintendent's report would be done if not for the elementary learning team. So as you know, we've been doing this for a few years, bringing our learning teams to the board. You heard recently from one of our groups already. This is the second in the list. For those who don't know, at one point we had 3 separate teams at each building. We have combined them. It's been a few years now, a couple of years at least, where we've combined into one elementary team. The model is really working well, we think, and not just because they're staring at me on the Zoom screen. They're doing a great job right now in terms of taking our district goals, remember rolling them out into our SMART objectives, and then getting it down into the trenches at that lowest level with our action steps. So the 3 of them are going to lead you through the elementary presentation now. I believe Matt either has or will be sharing his screen so they can host it.
That is not accurate. They should already be co-hosts so they can share the screens.
All right, so we're gonna give it a shot right now. It's been a while since I've used Zoom. So if you just bear with me for just a second, I'm going to try to share my screen. And perhaps that is working.
That looks good, Josh.
All right, excellent, excellent. Well, we do appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you, Dr. Franchini, for the introduction. I'd also like to formally request not to follow Mr. Messia in Algonquin next year from last month, excuse me. But we do appreciate this time, and thank you for the opportunity to take a few minutes to update you on where we are at a year later from the last time we met, and to share with you specifically kind of look at our district goals, which we're all aware of, but also kind of take a look at our elementary objectives that we've worked with our elementary leadership teams, and what we're doing to help meet the needs of every student every day here in April Park. So with that said, we do have our district goal. Students will be, or excuse me, I do want to introduce Dennis from Miller Hill and Carrie from West Sand Lake. We have 3 district goals, which works out very well with having 3 elementary principals. So we're each going to take a goal and talk through it tonight. I'm going to take goal 1. Mrs. Rocher will take goal 2, and Mr. Simpson will take goal 3 and talk through that. So with that said, goal 1, students will graduate college and career ready. Our elementary objective along this line is similar to what we had last year as well. And what we're really looking at is our student performance in reading assessments. Our universal screener is what we follow this with. And what we're really looking for is for students to maintain or improve their performance from their fall benchmark, which took place in the September-October timeframe, and from there to our spring benchmark with our universal screener in May. So that's kind of the qualifier that we're looking at. So obviously we're not at a point where we can necessarily report out whether we met this objective or not. But what we're going to share today is kind of the steps that we're taking to help ensure that we're able to maintain and improve student learning in the area of reading, specifically around our objective. So with that said, I'd like to just, before we kind of take a look in to kind of where we are and what we're doing specifically, there's a lot of things that we hear and have been hearing now for the last couple of years. We hear a lot about learning loss. We hear a lot about kids are behind. We hear a lot about unfinished learning, the disproportionate impacts. We understand that COVID-19 has impacted public education and student learning in ways that, quite honestly, no one has ever currently working seen before. But we do also know that there's a lot of things that we have power and control over. I know last month, Mr. Messia shared a little bit of John Hattie's work. So the chart there really just it's all of the research data, the educational research on what impacts student learning the most. And from there, you're able to really kind of get an idea and an understanding of what strategies, what specific things schools can do that have the largest impact on student learning. And to that end, what have the largest improvements over the course of the year. The hinge point is that 0.4 effect. Anything above that, you're making more than a year's progress in a year's time. So a lot of what we do and that we focus on this year has been around those research-based strategies, specifically professional learning. So that's something we're going to talk through today, is the targeted professional learning that we're providing teachers in our district. And then specifically for how we're meeting our student needs, it's through that idea of differentiated instruction and using diagnostic testing to be able to truly dig down deep enough that we can help support students at the skill level. So with that said, just wanted to kind of quickly talk through, this is the focus right here. So this is what we're focusing on this year to help us meet the objective that will then help ensure goal 1 is being met from an elementary standpoint. And what we're really focusing on this year is the data that we have available to us and the AIS academic intervention services that we are able to provide. The data that we're going to use and we're going to talk about here in just a second is FastBridge and the professional learning, which is our secondary focus, or actually probably they're probably parallel actually as opposed to two separate focuses. Our professional learning this year is really on the science of reading to be able to identify those at the skill level where we can support students, as well as the professional learning community's PLC work that we're doing and continuing. So I wanted to kind of share, because again, we talked a little bit about the things that we're hearing. We hear a lot about student learning loss. We hear about they're behind. We hear about a lot of things. So this first slide, and both slides are looking at the same information, just two different ways. What we're looking at is our FastBridge reading fluency scores for students who were above the 25th percentile, which is our cut point for being able to provide our interventions and really looking to see where we can make those improvements. So this chart in particular looks at the past 3 school years. This is only fall data so that we had 3 years worth of data that we could compare. So you're going to see each grade level has a data set. The reason why we don't have kindergarten and first is because we use different universal screeners at those grade levels, because obviously they're not, it would be unfair to test them for reading fluency when they're still working on letter recognition and sound. So what you're going to notice here is that in each grade level set, you have a left-hand column, a middle column, and a right-hand column. The left-hand column is pre-COVID. So that was fall before the shutdown in March. And that's where students, I guess we could say, for the lack of a better term, had uninterrupted learning leading up to that. The middle column would be directly after, so that's the fall, directly after the spring closure. So obviously we would see an impact there. And then we also see the column, the 21-22 column for each grade level is really looking at this past fall, this past September. And what we're going to see is there's a lot of tightness within grades 3 and 4, which is a good thing. So there isn't significant learning loss across the board. But what it is showing us is it's showing us an opportunity to address needs and focus our resources in specific areas. Specifically 2nd grade, which is a focus across the district, as well as some 5th grade. This next chart, what we're going to look at here is it's the same data, except now we're grouping it by cohorts. So now this is student to student. The previous one was grade level, so it's new students each column. This one is the same group of students, the first time they took it, the second time they took it, for the last 3 years. So same benchmark, 25th percentile and above, the students who are reading at reading fluency above the 25th percentile on FastBridge. So blue identifies before COVID, so uninterrupted learning. The yellow represents the return after closure. So that was this past, or a year ago, September, and then the current is in the orange. Obviously, because of the way we trend this, we only have the 3 group data for our current 4th and 5th graders, but you're going to see our current 3rd graders, 2nd graders last year, we are making gains there. We are able to provide the resources to the capacity that we can to help increase that. Our current grade 4, again, that same cohort is averaging out in that same range. 5th graders, we have, an area there that we want to kind of look more into, and the resources that we have available to us, use them accordingly for that. And again, current 6th graders, all the way to the right, at the middle school, they don't run the same benchmark data, so we wouldn't be an apples to apples comparison, but you can see in their previous 2 years, some consistency there, which is all good things. So I think when we look at it and when we kind of try to balance out the things that we're hearing, I think it's important to be able to recognize too, though, that the sky isn't falling and we have a lot of good things in learning that is happening. And we have a lot of hard work and dedication on behalf of our teachers across the board who are really trying to help meet the needs of the students that we have in front of them. So that's kind of a quick overview of the data. And the reason why I wanted to share that was to help show that when we just listen to what we can hear, it's not necessarily the same thing as when we actually start looking at the data. When we speak in general terms, we're not able to target where the target needs to be. And that's why the data is critical right now for being able to help support our student needs. The universal screener, again, that's the information that we are now reviewing. We're running full data team meetings at the beginning of the year, end of the year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And those meetings are the time when we're able to do this and then analyze where we need to be providing resources and to what extent, and being able to do that. One of the things that we're really pretty happy about this year is to be fully staffed in AIS again this year. Across the board, all 3 elementary buildings are back to 3 full-time AIS teachers within the building, which is incredibly important for us. Last year, that got impacted. We had 1 remaining AIS teacher when we were trying to run our 2 model program for those who were in person as well as those who chose virtual last year. Obviously, that had an impact on what we were able to do. But this year, we're really excited to be able to be fully staffed there, again, to address the reading skills at the level and where students, we're trying our best now that we have 3 to be able to meet the students where they're at. And we're also utilizing more diagnostic testing so we can identify at the skill level where we can remediate and where we can support our student learning needs through AIS. And I think that's a big part of what we're really looking for. So along that same thread, we've also, for probably about a year now, we've been working very hard with the district office, with Matt Halladen, to really work very, very hard on being intentional with our professional learning that we're providing our staff. And this is important too, because knowing last year, kind of where we were at, but also this year, we need to be able to provide the learning to support students in their classrooms and not just in AIS settings. So we've invested a lot in the Reading League. We've spent time talking about a variety of very important, critical reading elements that truly support student learning. In the end, when we look at this, we are looking at ways of embedding these, not just in one-off meetings, like in the picture here. You can see the Reading League visits that we've already had, and as well as the upcoming ones. But we've also worked really hard to help embed this learning in everyday life in all of our buildings. We've been doing it through team meetings. We've been doing it through faculty meetings. We actually had a faculty meeting today where we, again, reviewed this information with our staff to be able to help support student needs. This, in line with our AIS support, is truly impactful on the work that we're doing on a daily basis here. We have teachers who are asking to check in with another teacher or work with that teacher to be able to understand how to meet individual student needs, whether it's in our upper grade levels, helping to support syllable understanding and knowledge about breaking down syllables and syllable structures. At the earlier primary ages, we're looking at phonemes and decoding and being able to, again, provide that learning for all staff to be able to help support that. In addition, again, in more of that strategic and thoughtful way of being able to help meet this objective, we've worked a lot this year with Solution Tree Learning and Dr. Andrews to talk about professional learning communities. We've been working on essential standards work that's really understanding and prioritizing what's essential for our students, what's most important for our students to know so that they can gain the skills that they need to be successful. When we go back to that research base, John Hattie, collective efficacy is the #1 factor in improving student learning beyond 1 year's growth. And essentially, when we break down collective efficacy, that's what professional learning communities do. It's teachers working and being responsible for this learning of their students. And again, this is the work that we continue to do. We continue to invest in to help our students, or excuse me, to help our staff in that learning, as well as being able to help support our students. This was our district visit with Dr. Andrews, which happened in November, thanks to, I believe, a schedule change to the district calendar. So that was very much appreciated to be able to have our entire district, that's K-12, being able to do that. And we'd be remiss also when we look at professional learning. We have a curriculum change coming up for next year, and we've been incredibly strategic in the rollout of this. That decision was made late at the end of last school year, and the curriculums were picked. With that said, we knew that we needed to be strategic in the amount of time that we needed to be able to provide preparation for teachers in understanding and learning these new programs. The Board of Education recently adjusted the building calendar again for us, as this is a pretty significant need for our staff to be able to begin not only learning about the science of reading, the Reading League, professional learning communities, but at the K-5 level, we need to have time for teachers to have experience, professional training around these new programs in order to get an understanding and be ready in the fall for that. So there's a lot going on at the elementary level. There's a lot that our teachers continue to work through and work hard to be able to provide student learning, specifically in the area of reading, which goes back to our objective. We've been incredibly thoughtful in how we're going to utilize data and the analysis of that data. There's a continued focus on a daily basis around differentiation and the targeted skill practice for student learning. And we've been strategic and intentional in being able to provide that professional learning to our staff as a way to meet or exceed our Goal 1 objective for this school year. So that's a quick synopsis of where we're at, an update regarding Goal 1 and our elementary objective around that. I'm going to actually turn it over to Mrs. Rocher, who's going to talk us through Goal 2 and the objectives that go with that.
Thank you, Mr. Gella. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited tonight to be able to talk about Goal 2, and all these goals are so important. And I will talk a little bit about how this relates also with what Josh has shared about academic achievement. And this goal, Goal 2, is our goal is that students will productively engage in their school community. And really what that means is school community in many contexts, right? So our classrooms, our buildings, our families, our community. And I think we could all agree that, it's so important to us as we graduate students from Averill Park that they go on to be healthy, responsible, productive citizens who give back in so many ways in this world. And we truly do believe that that is an important part of what we do here. And we believe it really starts here in the K-5 building. So we definitely focus on that engagement piece. And it looks and comes across in many different ways in an elementary building. So I'm going to try and explain a little bit about how it looks and a little bit of the why behind it. This goal is not just something that as elementary principals we're focusing on. This is really a K-12 goal. And, this is something that Camille Harrelson is working towards with her SEL group. And we've all, I'm sure you will hear from all of the other stakeholders that they and the principals that this is very important. So here are some great pictures of our kiddos engaging in classroom and school-wide and community events. It's always great to see their faces. Go ahead, Josh.
It's not letting me advance. It must know that you're the one.
I don't think I can do it.
Yeah. All right. I'm back.
Here we are.
I apologize. We did not practice.
No, we're not Zoomers. So you've probably seen this wheel before. This is something that you'll see out there a lot. It's the CASTLE framework that's used for social emotional learning. And this is really what's guiding this goal. When we talk about community building and engagement, it really starts at the center with that social and emotional learning. And our students are coming to us really learning how to be learners and how to balance and regulate their emotions. Some of them have had experiences in preschool, some have not. For sure, we know that the COVID and the pandemic has had a huge impact on our students' experiences prior to school and then during school. So social emotional learning is a really important concept that I think you've heard about through some of the presentations that we've done in the past and through the SEL work, but I'll just quickly revisit here. We do a lot of work in our classrooms just naturally as we talk to kids and help kids problem solve, but we also do it very intentionally as well. And our school counselors, psychologists, social workers, they all participate in helping to help give teachers tools and also to go into classrooms in some instances to provide classroom lessons or counseling for students who need additional intervention. In these social emotional learning skills, which include the pie wedges there of self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. If you were to ask any of the building principals or a teacher, have we seen a difference in these skills since students have been exposed to the pandemic and whether it be the short amount of virtual learning time or perhaps fully virtual or just what's been happening in their homes since the pandemic has occurred, they would absolutely tell you that these are areas that we need to focus on. And I'll talk a little bit more about the research in just a minute. But social emotional learning skills are so important. In our character education program, which has existed for many years, most school districts have had character education programs, but they, were a little bit more generic and more perhaps assembly driven and, more of a school-wide initiative. That's really honed in and we're teaching character education in our classrooms every day. So if you look around the outside of the circle, you start to see those contexts for which those social and emotional learning skills are taught. And the classroom relationships and the climate that's created, that's really going to be the focus of this particular goal. Although we know that we're teaching and encouraging engagement in our schools in all of these contexts through school-wide assemblies, within our school opportunities for kids to be leaders, We work with families and caregivers. We try to partner as much as we can with our families and community, whether that be through events, PTA. It's unfortunately, that's been a real challenge for us. With the pandemic, we haven't been able to do as much in person, but we found some creative ways to try to engage the community and still do some of those really impactful outreach programs that, we've done over the years. And I know this year we did a veterans parade, even by having it come to us and be outside. So we're trying to find creative ways to build school community and engagement, not just in our walls here. So I'll have you go forward, Josh. So here's just a couple, there's so much research around this. As I was kind of thinking about what to share about this particular goal in the research, I really had to pare it down because it could be overwhelming. But I want to focus on a couple pieces of research that I think are really important to this goal. And it goes back to what Josh said before. When students have supportive relationships and opportunities to develop and practice social, emotional, and cognitive skills across many contexts, academic learning accelerates. And so we know that when our teachers spend time and intentionally build relationships, practice those social and emotional skills across their day, not just when the school counselor comes in to do a lesson, that increases academic learning. And that's so important here. I don't know if anyone's ever heard, there's kind of like a term out there that's Maslow before Bloom. And it's there's this whole movement out there, and it's really about, we need our physical needs met before we can learn academically, and our mental needs met before we can learn academically. And so we spend a lot of time here building relationships, making sure kids feel safe. They have trusted adults that they can turn to, that they have positive social relationships. And that's been a challenge because kids are coming in with not as strong of experiences as they did before. So the last part I just wanted to note here is, you'll notice some of those bolded words are some of those skills that were mentioned in the wheel. So students participating in SEL programs show improved classroom behavior and increased ability to manage stress and depression. They have better attitudes about themselves, others, and school. And that is another really big goal of what I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is what we've called classroom connections. And so that goal that we have, and you can go ahead, Josh. The objective is that by the end of each trimester, all students in grades K through 5 will be able to describe at least one classroom connections activity that they engaged in. And the classroom connections activities are ones that focus on those pie pieces within that castle wheel. So we're developing relationships. We're working on getting to know you. There's a lot of really fun things that our teachers have creatively come up with and also worked with our providers on to put into this time. So go ahead, Josh. You might be wondering, this is my next question. You're wondering, what are classroom connections? So go ahead. So we have developed this time, and it actually started, it was last year, Josh, maybe not if I'm right, the classroom connections was built in just last year or the year before? No, how long ago? So it's been a couple iterations, but we built it into the master schedule across all of our buildings in a very consistent and intentional way. So this year, we've developed a 20 to 30 minute block in the master schedule. So it's an expectation, K-5, that teachers will be engaging in classroom and school community activities that foster and strengthen those areas that I discussed before: relationships, team building, those skills, problem solving. resilience, character ed. Now, we each have groups of people in our buildings who like to work on some of these activities with us. We have leaders in the social emotional realm. We have, a lot of teachers who feel very passionate about this. And we bring in some other folks as well to help us with creating classroom connections. And some of those examples, like, some of them might be games, some of them might be community circles, which, you may or may not know about. We certainly could talk about another time, kind of what that looks like, but sometimes it's restorative circles. Sometimes it's taking, a problem or something happening in a classroom and discussing it and letting everyone in the classroom have a chance to speak about it and talk about their feelings and be validated, or problem solving. It's really powerful. Some of our teachers use that daily. Some of them use it as needed. There are some read alouds that teachers do to teach those character ed traits and skills, and much, much more. If I had to write them all down, all the activities, it'd be pages and pages of them. So we've been working with our SEL coordinators, Liz and Tracy, Camille, our ALTs, the BLT, to really determine kind of what does this time look like, and then how will we measure it? This isn't as easy to measure as an ELA assessment, perhaps. So we really gave it to our ALTs and our teacher leaders to tell us, how do you think we could measure this goal in the absence of something formal? What could we create? And the teachers came up with, a very appropriate assessment based on the age of the students. And we are measuring this on the trimester. So we do have one for trimester 1. And we have met our objective, which is for kids to be able to describe at least one classroom connection activity that they engaged in. We got more information than just that they engaged in them. But it was important to us that kids knew about classroom connections and that it was a part of their day every day, and that they could identify with what that time is, and that they could verbalize it. Kindergarten this trimester, we didn't ask them to write it down just because they're so little, and that was a lot at this age, but we will do something a little bit more formal with kindergarten in the 2nd and 3rd trimester. But go ahead, Josh. I wanted to share with you some of the responses that we got from our precious children across all 3 buildings. So I took all of the assessments and kind of mined through, and there were a lot of similar examples. There were some really neat ones. I tried to grab a few of them. You can see one of our 1st graders drew pictures of themselves at classroom connection time doing something. This guy says, "Caring is when you are kind." And they also did kind of some smiley face, how do you feel when you do classroom connections and things like that. So it gave their teachers some feedback too about what the kids liked or didn't like, and what they're learning through classroom connection time. Our 2nd grader here, if you can see that, it says, what did you like most about classroom connections? And it says, my favorite thing is 4 corners because I like playing games with my class. So that's an example of a game where they get to know each other a little better. A lot of kids wrote about 4 corners. It's a big thing. So ask your own kids about 4 corners. 3rd grader said, my favorite classroom connections activity was our kindness light bulbs. This activity was my favorite because we got to share how we could be kind to everyone. And a lot of kids talked about kindness and how they can do kind things for others and what that means to them. 4th grader said, my favorite classroom connection is breathing techniques because it helps me when I'm stressed. We have been talking a lot about mindfulness and how we can help with that stress and anxiety that a lot of kids are bringing to school. A lot of adults are bringing to school every day. So it was great to see some of these things that are happening in classrooms and how kids are remembering them and practicing them. And the last one is a fifth grader who said our classroom circles because I get to hear what other people's opinions are and what they have to say. And fifth graders like to hear what others have to say, and they like to share their opinions. So that was very appropriate from a fifth grader, but that's important to them in fifth grade. So this work continues. We're glad that kids are engaging in these activities because we do believe that it is making a difference in the relationships and is translating to academics and social learning, emotional learning. But we have a lot of work to do in this area. We know that this is continuing to be a huge area of need for our students and our buildings in general. So we have an SEL curriculum renewal team that Matt leads and works with Camille on. And as you know, we have our two coaches, Liz and Tracy, who have been working with us, with our staff. They've been coming to building team meetings, faculty meetings, professional development days. And it's really important that, you know, we learn more about best practices and we continue, just like with the academic and the ELA, to provide professional development so that teachers have that collective efficacy to help themselves and in the moment too, to know what to do when they come across some of these issues in their classroom, because it can't just be a one-time lesson that a child gets to help them develop these skills. We know it has to be practiced across multiple contexts. So this is really big work. It seems like academic is huge, but also social emotional is huge as well. So I will stop there and pass the unmute to Dennis. I'm going to mute.
Great. Thank you very much, Carrie and Josh. And again, you know, the goals and the objectives that Josh and Carrie have explained, you know, are very global. They're big picture and big conceptual items. I have the pleasure of presenting something a little bit more simpler in terms of the application. And for goal number 3, students will be digitally fluent, demonstrating the ability to live productively and safely in a technology-influenced society. So here we're dealing with specific technological skills and the development and application of those. You can go ahead, Josh. And the way that we define this at the elementary level is, you know, we're looking for our students to be struggling with that word, technologically fluent. We'll ad-lib there. And again, the expectations for, you know, our youngest learners. So at the kindergarten level, we're really looking for accessibility and are they able to access the tools that we have provided for them. At the first and second grade level, we're looking a bit more at application of those skills. And at the 3rd through 5th grade level, obviously skill development and enhancement of those skills. And we would be remiss to not address the commitment that the school district has made to those tools, not only in the actual devices and hardware and so forth, but also the support that goes along with that. So, you know, our students are almost exclusively using Chromebooks now. We've kind of transitioned away from PCs for a multitude of reasons, obviously. And we also, it's also important to note, and I'm going to come back to this at the end, how important some of these human resource commitments that the district has made are vital to the things that we're trying to accomplish, and obviously the things that we need our students to produce and perform. Our technology integration specialist, Melissa Weatherwax, and the entire tech department, really vital to pretty much every daily instruction and task that we're working on. So you can go to the next slide, Josh. So at the K-5 level, we've taken an approach of 3 different objectives to achieve this goal of digitally fluent students. I'm going to get it right before we're done here. So objective 1 deals exclusively with kindergarten And by the end of the first trimester, which we have just reached, 100% of our kindergarten students will be able to independently access and exit a district-supported platform via Clever with their badge. So what is Clever? Clever is kind of like a QR code that allows them access to the whole platform of applications that they have available to them. And again, our goal was to get our kindergartners, and by the way, I talked about the commitment of the Chromebooks. Please understand that our kindergartners are not yet at that one-to-one stage that our 2nd through 12th graders are at now. So it is a shared resource right now for kindergarten. And again, they don't want to devote a tremendous amount of their instructional day to technology because, as Josh alluded to, we're dealing with literacy development. And as Carrie alluded to, we're dealing with social and emotional learning as well. And that's really human interaction that is required for that. But in terms of kindergarten, again, can they access the resources that we have available to them? You can go to the next slide, Josh. And I'm happy to report that this objective has been achieved. You can go to the next slide. By the end of the first trimester, our kindergarten teachers report that 100% of kindergarten students have in fact independently accessed and exited a district-supported platform via Clever with their badge. And in fact, they're doing it on almost a daily basis now. So clearly that is an objective that has been achieved, and now we're able to move our students forward into getting into the utilization of these applications. You can go to the next slide. So our second objective is primarily focused on our 1st and 2nd graders. And this is an end of the year objective in which we want our students to be able to independently complete and submit an assignment via Seesaw. Seesaw is the online learning platform for our K1 and 2 students, not only in the event of remote instruction, but also it's utilized during the school day. It's also a great communication tool between school and home. You can go to the next slide, Josh. And in regards to this objective for our 1st and 2nd graders, it's been mostly achieved. Although it's an end of the year objective, our 1st and 2nd grade teachers have worked diligently with their students to make sure that they are not only comfortable and familiar with Seesaw, but also able to utilize it in the manner that, quite frankly, they would need to in the event that we had to go remote in order to keep their instruction and learning moving on. So again, for the most part, just about all of our 1st and 2nd graders have independently completed and submitted assignments on Seesaw, and they continue to do so. We can go to the next slide. And here's just a couple of pictures of our 1st and 2nd graders actually applying that skill. You can go, thank you. Our third objective for the technologically influenced or literate students is by the end of the year, again, an end of the year goal, 100% of our students in grades 3 through 5 will improve their speed and accuracy through weekly practice using the Keyboarding Without Tears program. Again, this is an investment that the school district has made, and this is more of an application and enhancement of that keyboarding skill. Some of us old timers, we see this as kind of a replacement for handwriting, the dedicated handwriting time. But to be honest with you, 21st century skills, these are the skills that our students need if they're going to be successful, not only in their K-12 academic experience, but also moving on into adulthood and so forth. So Josh, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So in grades 3, 4, and 5, our students are regularly logging into the Keyboarding Without Tears program to continue to improve their keyboarding skills. What you're seeing on the screen here is just a snapshot from the end of December. So right around the end of the first trimester. And I can't control it, but all the way to the left, you'll see a graph of 37%. That's the curriculum progress that's been made. And actually at the 3, 4, 5 level, that number is even higher, because if you look all the way to the right, the bar chart to the right, those 3 bars on the right-hand side, that is our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So you can see those grades are actually using the program more than our 1st and 2nd graders. So the percentage of curriculum progress would probably be greater if we were to just isolate those 3 grades in grades 3, 4, and 5. So again, we're on our way to achieving this goal. I think we're all very confident that as the students continue to use this resource, their keyboarding skills will improve to the point where they'll probably be more competent than the adults in their life in terms of their keyboarding skills. You can go to the next slide. This is just some examples. Yep. These are some examples of what the program actually looks like. And as you can see, it's a tutorial that, again, has them practicing specific keystrokes and so forth. Probably what, well, at least when I was in high school, you know, we had keyboarding class and so forth. Now it's all independently directed. It monitors each student's progress and so forth. So that is a synopsis of our approach to goal number 3. And before we leave, I just want to reference that, you know, during Josh's explanation of our objective 1 and Carrie's explanation of our objective 2, we mentioned a lot of different human resources, our intervention specialists, our technology integration specialists, our social emotional coaches, Kate Dorgan, who wears too many hats to really explain, but you know, she's responsible for AIS, she's responsible for professional development. And it truly speaks to what I would consider to be a pillar of our school district, which is that collective efficacy that Josh referenced. You know, we are truly a team of professionals working towards improving and enhancing the educational experience of our students. And again, hopefully through this presentation, you've seen that we're making good progress. There's always going to be hurdles along the way, but you know, we will continue. And again, we can't express enough how fortunate we are to have the teaching staff that we have, who are really they're the cog that deals with literacy development, that deals with social emotional learning, that deals with enhancement of specific skills and so forth. So kudos to our faculty, and again to all those other professionals that are involved in the daily instruction of our K-5 students. Thank you.
Well, thank you 3. I think this presentation was really thorough and detailed, and I certainly appreciate that. And so I guess we can open it to questions, but since I can't see all of you guys at the same time, just bear with us if we have questions and we'll figure out who can go in what order. Anne.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
First of all, thanks to you 3. That was really fantastic. And Dennis, when I heard your about your keyboarding story, I thought about my keyboarding story, and this is how much older I am, because ours was a whole bunch of typewriters in a room, and we were all typing J, 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 K, 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 and trying to see how fast we could type the thing up on the screen. So we've come a long way, baby. And when I saw your keyboarding without tears, I didn't realize that was an actual program. Like that made me laugh. So, but back to specifically on goal 1. I hate to sound like I was a little bit confused on the cohort chart. And I when we were looking at that, when you were talking about that, as the cohorts came through the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, there were the 3-year span of 19, 20, 20, 21, and 21, 22. What I wanted to know was, and maybe I just missed it when you said it, but what I remember seeing is there was like a lot of 80%, and now there's a lot of like 69, 73 kind of thing. Where are you trying to set a specific earmark where you want to be at the end of 21, 22 in terms of a percentage, or are you just looking for an improvement?
So anybody can jump in, Carrie and Dennis too. But so the way that the objective is written, it's written that every student will maintain or improve. Obviously, maintaining is not necessarily what we're looking for. We're looking more for that improvement aspect of it. So again, when we met to set that objective in July with our grade level teacher leaders, as well as the elementary leadership, we were really kind of focused on looking at it from last year's perspective too, because it's written very similarly to last year in the objective. And part of the challenge with, when we were talking through that, when we started this year, we had students who left in March of 20 and had not been back into a school building until what was going to be September of this year. So we had some significant concerns regarding where we were at with students being able to come back from the pandemic. Obviously, we were very excited for the district support as well as the board support to be able to offer in person for everybody this year. And when we were in July, like I said, when we were kind of looking through this work and trying to identify objectives, we didn't know exactly where we were. And to be totally honest, we didn't necessarily know what opening for the 21-22 school year officially looked like either. So we were trying to kind of navigate the uncertainties from the previous year, as well as the uncertainties ahead of us when we were writing the objective. Obviously, based on the work that we're doing through professional learning for all in our buildings, to be able to provide that highest level of understanding for reading instruction, and to be perfectly honest, the science of reading, the Reading League, they talk a lot about information that was not necessarily part of a lot of teacher programs, teacher development programs. So a lot of it is providing that education for all, myself included. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I certainly was never a reading specialist on any front. So the investment in that, so that we can provide all professionals that level of learning to help balance that out, as well as be very targeted with our AIS intervention. Again, last year we didn't have that. We had one provider per building. We had to, kind of triage, so to speak, a little bit of where we were going to put those supports in place. To be very honest, our upper grade levels, we're not able to receive that same level last year when we had one. So a lot of it was just trying to figure it out and rebalance the ship, but be intentional in how we were planning to be able to meet those needs. Carrie, I don't even know if I answered your question at this point.
I was just going to add in that we measure that specific assessment that Josh showed the bar graphs for. We'll measure that 3 times a year. So by the end of the year, we'll really be able to take this first bar that you saw for the 21-22 school year and compare it to mid-year, end of year. So we will really be looking for growth over time. We were able to get some, notice some patterns and some needs and some identify individual students, which you didn't see that type of level data tonight. But it does really show us some of those like areas, like Josh pointed out, 2nd grade, 5th grade, but we'll look over time for that growth. So by the end of the year, we'd be able to really see how are we measuring towards having our students graduate, with the skills they need in order to go on and, be successful.
And also now that thank you, Carrie, because I had a second to think. And also because it's a universal screener, it doesn't mean that, the 35th percentile in fall is the same as what 35th percentile is in the spring, because it grows over time with the expectation of learning. So maintaining doesn't mean that they're maintaining at that 35th fall level. It means that they've grown and are compared to their, nationally normed people and the expectations. That expectation from fall to spring grows. So maintaining is still growth when we look at it that way. So I hope something in there helped.
Yeah, it did. I understand what you're saying. Like, I didn't know if you were trying to get to a specific new percentage, or if you were just looking for growth. But what I'm realizing from listening more is it's not just these benchmarks that you're hitting, it's what you're learning from those numbers as they change. Like Carrie was saying, where are the needs? Like you're drilling down even further than what we're seeing. Where are the needs? Where do we need to put our resources? And so the data that you're providing isn't so much results as it is like, here's information that we need in order to take our next step is the way I'm.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This is what we're using when we're looking to make decisions on resources or programs or needs, and then being able to invest in those areas. Yep.
And while I have your ear, just quick, I do recognize, and I'm sure we all do, how horrible the last couple of years have been for children, for all of us really. And the social emotional learning aspect of it is, we used to poo-poo that kind of thing, but it really is like, if kids don't feel safe and nurtured, they're not going to be able to focus on the academics. And we all know how important the academics are, but really, if you don't focus on the whole child, then, it's all for naught, everything you're doing. So I really appreciate that aspect of it as well. And thank you for a great presentation.
Yeah, good point, Anne. Thank you. I think Samantha had her hand up too.
Okay. Yeah, really good presentation. And actually, I was wondering if I could get, you had, Josh, you had a slide in there with a couple of graphics that I could have stared at and pulled that apart for like 10 more minutes. So if there's any way to email me that slide, the one with the rope. And then there was something else, but it was I was like, oh, what does that mean? And then it was like time to move on. But I'd like to poke around what that meant. And to sort of follow off on Anne, what you guys are using in your assessment now is something that isn't parenthesed by the pandemic, right? This is something that I know Albany, New York State isn't they're not giving results for reading assessments. They have their scorecard, right? And you can't, you could sort of, normally you can compare, year over year and to other school districts. But they're saying don't do that this year because it's such a low representation because of pandemic. But my understanding is that this data that you guys have is able to be carried, if it ever comes out of the pandemic. Am I?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And Samantha, yeah, again, as we adopt more of a scientific philosophy towards education and learning, things like universal screeners, and again, the focus on the universal screener slide that Josh shared was on the students that are meeting that percentage. But really the important information and data is the students that aren't where they should be. And we're able to now dig deeper and really be able to identify the specific areas and skills that they're struggling in so that we can target the intervention more directly towards, phoneme awareness or whatever specific skill an individual child is lacking or deficient in. And therefore, again, the screenings in the fall and the winter and the spring, they're just snapshots in time. It's all the work that goes in between those moments in time that's really gonna improve and enhance their literacy skills. So pandemic aside, universal screeners and diagnostics is the future for Averill Park. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, if anybody can send me that slide, I would love to poke around with that. And
I have your Post-it note, so you will be getting that tomorrow.
We'll just so you know too, we'll post the presentation in board docs for everybody.
Cool.
So we'll have that up there.
And I wanted to the classroom connections and stuff, just on from an anecdotal experience, it's working for my kids. my daughter, like she does her like little breathing exercises. And so it seems, again, like it's anecdotal, but on the ground, that stuff is working. Seesaw is a fantastic platform. And I'm so glad that we've embraced it. And it really, it's the kind of thing that you like, we're sort of all waiting here, like, are we going to go virtual tomorrow? But I'm not freaking out about it, right? I'm not, because we have these platforms and you guys are all really, really excellent with the platforms now. So, I'm like, I'm not stressing. I can like do my own classroom connection breathing tools. So thanks for a great presentation and all the great work you guys do. It's great. And Mike, excited to see Mr. Gala there.
Just to add to that, first off, I'm glad you're not freaking out about going virtual tomorrow. That makes one of us. So,
Did I just like
the in addition to making sure that slide gets or that presentation gets up into board docs, the one thing that's really important and kind of goes to some of the school safety stuff we talked about last time is, you remember we talked about the proactive stuff we do and the reactive stuff we do and the hardware and the SRO. And one of the things that we talked about specifically at that point was the schedule changes we made, which included classroom connections at the elementary level, which is a way to connect and engage students into their school community. So to your point, there's a larger purpose here than, sometimes you think about it. It's making sure kids are connected and invested to their to their friends, their colleagues, and their peers. So Jesse, I know you can't see everyone, but I know Megan has a hand up. So.
Okay, go ahead, Megan, then. Thank you, I can't.
Thanks. I wanted to recognize the teachers in the classrooms and the aides in the classrooms and all of the AIS professionals and everybody that's putting in the extra effort to help contribute to the responses that we're getting. I'm wondering if there's, obviously we want to make sure that our educators have everything that they need and that they understand that we, are caring also about their mental health, because that also is conveyed into, how the kids react. I'm curious if there's any tracking on, because I noticed that some of the better results were at the lower age group, and then some of the struggle, you start to see the struggle on the older kids. And I wonder if that's like a cognizant awareness of the reality of the situation. As kids get older and they mature and they start to see things more, they start to understand more about the gravity of a situation. Is that part of the social emotional learning? Are we touching on that with them? Is there any tracking to the disruption of their schedules where, you've got a different sub every day, or, things like that, the worries of older kids, and of course the worries of our teachers.
I'll jump in. I don't know that we are tracking that in a quantitative way. We know how many subs we have, and we know, when we've had to utilize different providers. I think our kids are pretty resilient. I would say that, we do a pretty good job of trying to put people in places where the disruption to our kids is not as much as we might think it is. A lot of times there are people within our buildings, although it is hard to get pulled from a position and put into another position at the last minute. If you're, a support provider, now you're teaching 5th grade. Some of that is challenging. The older kids might be able to verbalize it. I would say the younger kids, we would see it in more of a behavioral way. So I don't know that we have a way to quantify that, but I would say that absolutely staffing concerns affect our entire building in so many ways, because we do have to make shifts at the last minute, take from certain, services that we may be giving, whether it be AIS or, I'm subbing, or Mr. Gella or Mr. Simpson, or, we're all pulling in different directions just to make it work. We definitely, we appreciate that you guys acknowledge our teachers and our staff. that matters to them to hear that from you. And I think they appreciate it, and you know, we thank them as much as we can, but you know, their job is very difficult, as is yours as parents and community members and administrators. So you know, we're all in this together. I think understanding and support is the biggest thing. Like everybody, you know, when you hear that you're appreciated and you hear that the time you're putting in is going towards good, you know, makes it a little bit easier. So Jim, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, or the other principals, about the data piece of it. But we're certainly working on that. And that is on, you know, that's a top priority for all of the administrators. And I'm on a lot of, you know, regional and different groups, and we talk about it every time, the shortages in staffing and the impact on mental health for the adults as well. So.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, again, thank you for the great presentation and lots of information, and for being who you guys are, that you do, like Megan pointed out, you care so much about what you do, and we do worry about everybody through this pandemic for sure. So we do hope that everyone's continuing to do well.
Jesse,
Thank you,
thank you. Josh, Carrie, and Dennis, thank you very much. You are free to exit the Zoom, and I'm sure you'll join the live stream so you can watch the rest of the meeting. So
Thank you
thank
all.
you for
Thanks for
spending
your
some time with us.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And Jesse, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Night.
What was that?
Oh, you made the girls' night. They were very excited to see you.
Well, I'm glad I could do that. So enjoy.
Right.
I would also, for the board members, I would, as a board member in my home district, and to Carrie's point about thanking people, thank you very much. I don't think I've ever had more appreciation for what board members do, now that I actually know what board members do. So thank you very much for your time and commitment to our district. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Have a good
Take
night.
care. Have a good night. All
Now that
right.
concludes the superintendent's report.
That was a good ending. All right, so the next item agenda is public comment on items on the agenda, which we have 2 public comments, but neither of them are related to topics on this agenda. So we'll move right along to item number 4, to approve the minutes of the December 13th, 2021 meeting. Samantha made a motion. I saw her hand go up. Sorry, I can't see everybody. Anne, second. Any discussion? I will ask you guys to unmute because I can't see everybody on one screen, so we can get everybody. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's what I thought. Everybody passes unanimously. Thank you. And then moving on the agenda, if I could have a motion to approve items number 5 through 7, the consent agendas for the business, personnel, and special education.
I make a motion.
Sure, Megan.
I'll second.
Doug, second. Discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Well, actually, I just want to point out, I'm glad we're able to do some this winter carnival for AMS. It sounds like a nice outdoor activity during the pandemic, and I'm sure the kids are very excited about it. So thank you to those people who put that together. Samantha.
Actually, that just reminded me of a question that I wrote it down in my other notebook, and not the one that I have in front of me. I don't know why. Just that winter carnival. Are there any like rules around like families, siblings, stuff like that, or is it like strictly AMS kids? I mean, not that I'm bringing my kids, but do we need to? Is there anything like? Can siblings come? Is it families and all that, or is it just students? Do we know? Does it matter?
I'm not positive. I believe it's just Algonquin students though.
Yeah, that seems wise.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
I,
Right.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, on to item number 8. We have a couple resolutions. The first is be it resolved to approve the district revised corrective action plan as it relates to the findings noted in the extra classroom activity fund management letter issued by Marvin and Company CPAs dated September 28th, 2021 for the fund fiscal year end of June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution? Anne?
A second.
Thank you. Megan seconds. Discussion?
I just have a quick question.
Mhm.
What was revised? Because it looks very similar to what we had as the corrective action plan before.
The only thing that was added was the date.
Oh, okay.
Implementation,
Thank you.
everything else is exactly the same. We're just required to put the date on.
This looks really familiar. Okay,
Yes.
thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. Good question.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. The second resolution is to approve the special education plan for the 21-22 school year. Peter makes a motion, Jackie seconds. Discussion? Well, thank you to all who worked on that to put that together. All right, so no questions, which is good. I think it was pretty thorough, so. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Sorry, just because I can't see you all. Okay, that passes. Thank you. We have a couple action items. The first one is a motion to approve to amend the substitute rates for nurses for the 21-22 school year. The new rate would be $30 an hour. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, well, we had everybody's hand go up
Oh.
at once.
Then I'll second it, whatever.
So
You could take
I
it.
think it was actually Peter and Anne, so that I saw first. Sorry, guys. So any discussion on that? Yes.
I
Anne,
have
go
a
ahead.
question.
Sure.
What was it before? You said what the new rate was, but
Oh,
what
Yes,
was it?
sorry. Kim?
It had previously been 125 a day, which was about $18 an hour. And we recognize that that was much lower than really most or all districts, in the area. I did a survey of colleagues around the area, and most seem to be in the mid $20 range up to, I think one district was in around 34. So that's how we landed on this rate.
And this is a consultant fee. It's not, these aren't employees.
Right. So this would be to try to track substitute nurses when our nurses are out. And
So we're not paying any FICA or retired. This is just, they're just
well, they
non-employee compensated.
well, I guess, Carrie, they technically would be employees when they're working.
Yeah, we'll be paying them through payroll, so that would be subject to taxes as well. We hired them as substitute employees.
Oh, okay.
Just like a substitute teacher, Ann.
Ah, gotcha. Thank you.
Kim we did some research, in consultation with the nurses. We know we're not getting sub nurses in. And when we did the rates at the last board meeting, it was something that kind of fell through the cracks. So once it was brought to our attention, we wanted to do some analysis, like Kim said, realized our rate was relatively low, very low, and we thought we'd boost it up just to be more competitive. As you know, the market, like everything else, is very tight right now, but nurses especially are in demand. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good question. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just making sure. Sorry, guys. Okay, passes. Thank you. The next is a motion to approve to accept the donation from the No Opiates Committee in the amount of $1,500 towards the cost of Chris Herron, the first day substance abuse prevention presentation, and increase the general fund budget by that amount. Do I have a motion? Ann, seconded by Jackie. And I want to thank the No Opiates Committee for their generous donation. I think, obviously they have important work on their agenda, that the No Opiates Committee, and we certainly support them because they support us. So we really appreciate that.
Those who don't remember, just to jump in real quick, we had scheduled Chris Herron to come in 1920. We had it all set up, and then the pandemic hit. Our plan at the time is what we've kind of continued. We're partnering with Bethlehem School District. So we're bringing Chris here. He's going to do a presentation with us and then a presentation in Bethlehem. So we got a little bit of a discount because he's doing 2 for 1. And he's an extremely well-known speaker. If you've ever seen him present, he's been on multiple venues. You could see him. There's a subject. He's the subject of an ESPN 30 for 30. He had a special, I believe, on ABC. Extremely powerful, great message, and really, really excited to bring him to us. In addition to Nopiates, I want to thank the Rensselaer County Sheriff's Office and the Education Foundation. They previously have donated to that to pay for Chris. That money's been rolled over by Michael now to Carrie in a separate line item so that we have the money available to pay for it. So thank you to them for making it possible, those 3 groups.
Yeah, great. Thank
When
you.
is the event?
May 18th, I believe it is. Yeah.
Awesome.
Excellent.
We're hoping that it'll be seen by all of our high school students. We'll see what happens COVID wise. In a perfect world, it's in the gym. Pre-COVID, it would have been in a gymnasium in a tight setting with the entire student body there. We'll see where we are on May 18th and make a plan. But we've talked about either doing it outside, in a football field type setting using bleachers, or we want to get as many of the high school students in there as possible. So
I think that's a great plan. All right. Any other discussion on this? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I think we got it all covered. Thank you. Brings us to item number 10, our policy discussion on 12:30. It's a second reading. We looked at this in our meeting in November, and we looked at it last meeting. And we don't necessarily have to approve it tonight. We're actually hoping that the next meeting we can approve all the policies that we reviewed, that were up for review, that we reviewed in November as one. So if we have any other comments that we want to make on this policy, let's talk about that now. I looked through it again and just confirmed that all the things that were discussed during our policy review were addressed in this policy, and but want to open the floor to see if others have any thoughts on it or comments.
I have a question.
Okay, Anne, and then
Well,
Samantha.
Not a
Sorry.
question. Couple very, very small things.
Yep.
More grammatical kind of things. because I too was ready. We had this huge policy review, and this one particularly got a lot of attention, being the climate that we're in. And so once I established that our changes were in there, this time I looked even closer, and really just on the policy part of it, on the second paragraph, it's maybe the third sentence. It says, to maintain a first come, first served process, the district will, and then there's a colon there.
Yeah.
As if there was going to be a list, but there's not a list. It just says request the name of the speaker, period. So I don't think we need a colon there.
I think you're
Okay.
right.
And then on the second page, the second from last paragraph, the one that starts with for members of the public.
Mhm.
In the last sentence, it says, in writing to the district clerk, 146 Gettle Road, Suite 1, or district clerk at APCSD dot, but then the rest of it's not there.
Oh, you're right, it isn't. Good catch.
And then I had one comment on the exhibit portion, which I know isn't any big deal because it's, kind of a suggesting kind of thing. But right in the middle, please know, however, that we take personnel concerns very seriously. On these and then it reads, on these matters, we would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. But in the policy, we talk about, I think it's in the fourth paragraph, it says the board will not permit in public session discussion involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and or concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours. So I felt that to be consistent in the exhibit, that we should maybe change that around a little bit on that last sentence to read, on these matters, we ask you to go, we ask you to contact the superintendent during regular business hours. So it kind of coincides with the policy that we said that.
Or do we want to change the policy to say appropriate administrative channel?
Well, the appropriate
throwing it out
administrative channel, when it comes to discussing personnel matters, is through the superintendent. Is it or not? Kim's nodding no.
I think it's
Yeah, I
chain
think
of
not
command.
In a
necessarily.
command thing, wouldn't it be like your building first?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's, I mean, as a parent, that's what I always thought, not that I've had any problems. Yeah, I would say, I would
Then
change it the other way. I wouldn't-
Okay, that's
I
right.
don't-
I
don't
just
really
think that
wanna
they should
pester-
agree.
Yeah.
And that makes sense
Everything to go
too.
through Jim, that doesn't seem.
So in the fourth paragraph of the policy, instead of saying to the superintendent during regular business hours, you could just say to the appropriate administrative channels and then leave the exhibit alone.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm with you. I totally agree that they should match for sure. That was a good catch.
Oh, thanks. And then finally, just one more quick thing for conciseness. Does that work? Where it says finally, that said, we want our school board meetings to serve as an example to our students that it says members of our school board and members of our community. I just thought it could read members of our school board and our community, instead of saying members twice.
Yeah, and I thought actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I guess we did have some discussion, and maybe this is where we ended up to say all participants, but I'm good with changing it to what you suggested, Anne. I don't know what anybody else has on thoughts on that part.
Yeah, just members of our school board and our community. It's just a
Yep.
little more like,
Yeah, it reads hard for sure.
yeah. That's all. Is that enough?
No,
For a
that's good.
For a 2-page policy?
That's
Well,
perfect, Anne, because that was pretty much
we
everything.
used this one, for quite a while and back in November, so.
I would like to thank you, Anne, because you caught everything that I caught. Now I don't have to say that often. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, mine might seem nitpicky now.
That's okay.
It's the, oopsie, now I'm back in the exhibit, hold on. Where the third paragraph down. So in the first paragraph, it's very specific about what the time constraints are. And then the third paragraph starts off, presentations should be as brief as possible, which to me feels like, okay, you already said that twice. So I wonder if the word succinct may be better, just to be like, so like, basically like we're asking people to be as clear as they can in the time that they have. Like, I don't know that we need to we've already said how long it's going to be. Do we need to say it again that it like 3 minutes, that's what you have. So
Presentations should be succinct,
or direct or specific, or, if that's what we're trying to get at, like the polite way of saying don't ramble, which is I get where you're coming from me.
Yeah, you're right, Samantha. By saying as brief as possible, you're kind of like, that's open-ended.
Well, and I also feel like we're beating a dead, at that point it's like, fine, I get it, you shut up. Fine. So it's like, you already said that. So if we want to keep that sentence, just have it encourage people.
I'm good with that edit. Anybody else?
And I get this is a little of the pot calling kettle black there. of all the boxes here, the Rambler is right here. So
Peter, Megan, Doug, Jackie.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm okay as well with all the corrections that were made.
Okay, great, Doug. Great.
Just, sorry to interrupt, just to confirm, for the edit, that is in where it says presentation should be as brief as possible. You want to say as succinct as possible?
Or just succinct, period,
Or just,
maybe.
okay, presentation should be succinct,
Mhm.
period. Okay, thank you.
like there's smart people here who might have a better word than that.
I think that's the word that the smart people would have come up with.
Now I feel good about
Okay.
it.
Okay.
A little SEL right here.
All right. Does anybody have anything else on the speaker form too? I like the edits that were made to that in particular too. I think
This will be
looks-
approved with the rest of them that we did before.
Yeah, so I think the plan is to bring this back with the edits and then incorporate all the ones that we reviewed, those the ones that required updates that we reviewed in November, have those come back to us for approval I think we could do it as a whole grouping. Right, Kim, that would work for you because you're kind of in charge of these policies.
Yes, I think we could review the remainder of the updates that we did in November
Mhm.
and then get back to the 4,000s as well.
Yeah, okay. All right, and so we're maybe looking to have these on the agenda for the next time for approval and then hopefully work towards reviewing the rest of the 4,000 series that we still have on our plate. Although we're making significant progress, just we got a lot of other things on our plates too. So everyone okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Is there any other thoughts anyone has on this policy? Okay. Well, not hearing any, we'll move to the second public comment period, and we did receive 2, and I will read those. And if anybody can let me know if any have come in during the meeting, that would be helpful. The first one was from Amy Hughes, and it says, the recent move to decrease isolation times for people who test positive for COVID without requiring a negative rapid test before an early return poses a serious threat to the safety of our community. It ignores the reality that most students are already not wearing high-quality masks and are not wearing masks properly at all times in classrooms, as recommended by the CDC. Even worse, students ending isolation early will be fully removing their masks to eat lunch in poorly ventilated cafeterias in close proximity to multiple other unmasked students. This is in direct opposition of CDC's updated guidance stating that those ending isolation after only 5 days must not go to places where you are unable to wear a mask, such as restaurants and some gyms, and avoid eating around others at home and at work until a full 10 days after your first day of symptoms. The data shows that infectiousness decreases after 5 days, but is not eliminated. Healthy students who want to protect themselves have no option to avoid the cafeteria where they will be exposed to unmasked and likely contagious others. The only way to know which students might still be in a danger to others is to require negative rapid tests for those who wish to end isolation at 5 days instead of 10. If the motivation behind reduced isolation times is to address staffing issues that might threaten to close schools, it would be logical to institute different rules for staff than for students. Teachers ending isolation early are only more likely than students to properly wear high-quality masks at all times around others. They also have the ability to go to an empty classroom or office to eat their lunches without endangering anyone else. Our health system and emergency services are buckling under the strain of the current surge. Our students and staff deserve to have school as safe as they can be. This recent change is not providing that and must be amended before it makes this already bad situation even worse. The second comment came from Tara, and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name, Tara Gajdushik. The subject is special ed self-contained classrooms. And the comment is, if there is sufficient healthy staffing for the self-contained classrooms, why are we waiting until day 6 of the remote learning to bring the special ed kids on site? So maybe somebody can respond in the future to these 2 messages. I think actually one of them have been responded to already, but I'm not certain. So we can talk about that offline. All
Yeah,
right.
we can certainly follow up.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. And I'm assuming that no more came in, and that will move us to item number 12, our board member reports. And I'm going to go as you guys appear on my screen. So that would be Jackie would be first.
Hi, I just wanted to thank all the elementary school leaders for the really great report tonight. It was, I do have an elementary school child, and I see the excellent work they do every day. And I really thought what they provided tonight was really informative. And I just wanted to say thank you. Great job.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. Anne?
Sorry, I have one screen with the agenda and one for the laptop, and I keep using the mouse and it doesn't. Why isn't this thing working? Oh, I hope that particularly the faculty and administration and staff had a chance to decompress a little bit over the holidays. And, I just hope everybody had a healthy and restful vacation. I also want to reiterate what Jackie said. What a great presentation. And I want to go back to elementary school. It sounds wonderful, just great work, and folks that really care about our kids it's a great feeling to have in such dark times, that there's so many folks out there that care about our kids and our community, and just hearing, and it's not all glossed over. Oh, it's all so great. Everything's so great. It's like this realization that it's not, and here's what we're doing to fix it. So I think that's really important to acknowledge that, and know that everybody's working toward that common goal, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Doug?
I want to second that. That was an excellent presentation by the elementary principals. I was so impressed with the multiple layers in which they are connecting with students and analyzing data and reacting to that data. I was impressed with the connections part of it, the way they're connecting with the students in the classroom, and have the students, I guess, report back or say back some of the lessons that they've learned. I was impressed with that. I like the idea that they're also focusing to some extent on the struggling students. I think that's so beneficial, and I appreciate that. And I just applaud their use of data in that whole presentation. That was an outstanding presentation, and I should have said that when they were there. I also wanted to report a second thing, that I attended a health and safety meeting virtually on December 16th. And Jim, if you wanted to interject anything along the way here, I know you were at that meeting as well. Perhaps some updates are needed. But Kate Dorgan, I guess one of her hats is the chairwoman of the Health and Safety Committee. 19 members were present. And the notes that I took, which interested me the most, first of all, they talked about the PFOA filtration system at the Algonquin School. At that point, it was being tested, and it was to be put online hopefully in January. They were testing it, as a matter of fact, the next day at Algonquin. So I don't know if that's online yet at Algonquin. Perhaps it is. But in any case, they were near completion of that entire project at that point. The other most interesting part of that meeting was the Safe Schools Project report. And what it discussed, and I won't go into detail because there's some security measures involved, but they were testing the new system in terms of the coordination, and it's such a complicated system of coordination between the telephones, coordination, the doors, the automatic locks, the cameras, and how better our system is now for security as a result of that Safe Schools project. And that is proven to be an outstanding program and outstanding technology that other schools are now asking to visit our system and to see that system working. Jim, congratulations on getting that system installed. It's a very complex project, and I don't know at what stage it is in terms of completion, but it offers our students much more security. And thank you very much for that.
I can jump in there, Doug. Thank you for attending those meetings. The drills were done over the break. We played around with when to do it, and especially given the climate in the district right before the break, we didn't think it was a good time to have strobe lights and amber lights going off and all that type of extra angst that would cause. So we waited till over the break, and things went very well. There's some little things that still have to be done. some cabling issues, all that type of stuff. Nothing significant. So we are in really good shape with that. And I appreciate you saying that. It's really been the definition of a team effort. Kate Dorgan has really come on and just taken this over, and Aaron's been on it since the beginning, and Lynn Burdick, and some people who have really spent some time making sure this is going well, including you guys have become familiar with the folks at Saratoga Project Management, and Bill McMorty has done a great job overseeing this, because a lot of it is out of our expertise level, and Bill is able to translate and navigate those things for us. So a lot of people appreciate that. I don't know. That's a really good question about the PFOA. I do not think that's online yet, but I'm not positive on that. I'll double check with Aaron. I'm not positive.
Well, they said at the meeting, January. So
yeah,
we have time, I guess.
There was some flushing that had to be involved, and there was different. I know it's up and working. I just don't know if it's officially operational. So,
okay. There were other points that were brought up in the meeting, but I thought those were the two that were most relevant and most interesting to me. And the next meeting is on March 17th of the Health and Safety Committee, which I plan to attend. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Doug, for reporting out on that. And so that's good news. And yes, I would agree. Those seem like very important items to report on. So we appreciate it.
Thanks.
Samantha?
I don't have a ton. I just wanted to, it was a great presentation, and I wanted to thank Linda already. I did the same thing where I've got the agenda up in one window, and Linda, thank you very much, has already uploaded that, the presentation, so I can geek out on that once the kids are asleep. But it's, it's just indicative now. You hear them screaming in the background, so that's fun. I just want to thank Jim, Matt, Ken, is Carrie still here? All you guys are just, it's such a, I'm so sorry, guys. It's such a rough time, and you guys are, I feel like that's like a physical manifestation of what's going on. You guys are doing a great job when there's just like, seems like there's no win-win situations to be found, but you're still finding them. And I appreciate that much. And I am one of those parents who couldn't make one of those 2 pickups for my test kits. Mrs. Wicks, once again, busted out over at PES, got them to me, got my written okay, and sent them home with my daughter. And so we have those hanging out, and for when we need them. So, it's a moving target all the time, but just the way that all the administration just kind of goes the extra mile. I'm going to cut this off now because of that, and just say thank you guys for everyone doing a great job. Good night.
Thanks, Samantha. Megan?
Hi, guys. Thank you. I want to give a special shout out to our music departments and a thank you for live streaming the concerts. That was extra special for families who weren't able to come and attend and see all of the work being put in by our musical students. So, and they were amazingly enjoyable, and all of the extra views are me replaying them for everyone I know. So that's just me. I also want to acknowledge and say thank you to every one of the administrators here tonight, as well as all of our teachers, our staff, our transportation department staff. I know that they have really been put to the test and are struggling, and it should not go unsaid how grateful we are for every single day that they show up and show out and do their very best for our kids in the community. So thank you for that. And to all of our families, our students and our families who are being directly impacted by COVID currently, who maybe are ailing or quarantining, sending you all well wishes for a speedy recovery. We're thinking of you. So thank you.
Great, Megan. Thank you. Peter?
Hi, Happy New Year to everyone. I wish the new year showed a little bit more light on the outcome and reduced number of COVID cases and variants. I want to empathize with the administrators and everybody in the district, really, in terms of the struggles in dealing with these outbreaks that have surged recently. And I know the toll that it takes on them outside of their regular job duties. So your efforts are truly appreciated, and we do recognize your hard work. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks, Peter. I do also want to give my appreciation to the work that everyone in the district is doing to stay open and keep our students safe and learning and, engaged in all that stuff that is good, the social emotional learning like Carrie talked about earlier. I think that's so important, and we do appreciate all your work. I know with the changing guidance, your break probably wasn't a break because that was all unfolding between Christmas and New Year's. And so we do recognize that everyone's going above and beyond to make and keep our school a safe place to be. So that is very much appreciated. And I said at the beginning, but Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully we can look forward to things in 2022 and not just the Omicron variant. So, all right. I think that brings us to recommend to move to executive session to discuss collective negotiations under the Taylor Law. We will not have need to come back to public session, so we will just sign off after we make this motion.
I make a motion.
Thank you, Megan. Doug, I think I heard say he'd second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.